Many thousands of years ago, the original men of knowledge learned to see. This allowed them to perceive the essence of things, including what it means to be alive. They discovered that being alive was not actually tied to having a flesh body. Spirits they had long been dealing with on a regular basis had no flesh body at all. They called those inorganic beings. And they noticed that the copy of themselves running around in their own dreams could learn to come out into the real world, becoming a second copy of themselves. They concluded that it must be possible to live on past death, if they could find a way to keep their energy of awareness intact. Perhaps the most basic way to preserve some of your existence past death is to pour it into an object. Such objects can be found around the pyramids of Mexico, but they're dangerous. La Gorda fell victim. As Don Juan explained, she no longer had defenses, and because of that, she could pick up that man's fixation, his second attention, which had been poured into that rock. When he was being killed, he held onto the rock in order to gather all his concentration. Don Juan said that the man's power went out of his body into his rock. But this method doesn't preserve the sentience of the sorcerer, and so sorcerers found other ways to live past death. They transformed themselves into beings with longer lifespans, such as trees, a feat that can be accomplished by moving the assemblage point far below the boundary of the luminous egg that houses our awareness, until it's stretched far down. Or they buried themselves under large rocks and altered the glow of their own awareness to match as closely as possible to that of their ally spirit helpers, which they kept with them in that sealed environment. This required them to periodically feast on the energy of people who mistakenly climbed on their rock, using their allies to scare the person to death. Using such a method, they could live on for many hundreds of years. One very bizarre method the old seers used to extend their lifespan, while keeping their independence and sentience, was to stretch their luminous shell into a long line, bending back on itself to remain in man's band of emanations. Sorcerers' stories say that because they had succeeded in stretching their shapes, they had also succeeded in stretching the duration of their consciousness. So they are alive and conscious to this day. There are stories about their periodic appearances on the earth. But by far the method used almost universally by the seers of ancient Mexico was to go to live in the inorganic being's realm. Because that realm is sealed, they could escape death for perhaps millions of years. No one knows how long they could live there, but to this day, not a single old seer who did that has died. Unfortunately, since that world is sealed, escape is nearly impossible. And after a few thousand years there, the seer had no body to return to, even if they could find a way out. The new seers shunned this possibility and found an alternative which didn't require imprisonment. Keep in mind, the appearance of this world is always an illusion, and the real thing is very different. This is the alternative the new seers found, which they say leads to total freedom. There was a catch, however. After doing this maneuver, they turned into a specialized form of inorganic being. They no longer needed an organic body, and they had a nearly infinite lifespan. However, they still needed a place to keep their energy of awareness contained. They took refuge in the earth as their new container, inside a gigantic dome structure seers found. Unfortunately, the earth won't live forever, and in 5 billion years our sun will run out of fuel, and begin to expand into a red giant, burning up the earth. When asked what happens after 5 billion years, Carlos was obviously annoyed, but he answered anyway and said, "Well, I suppose we'll just renegotiate." This method works because each position your assemblage point lights up continues to glow for at least 2 seconds, so that if you can move your assemblage point across the entire range in less than that time, you light up all of the emanations in your luminous shell at once, and the energy generated burns it away. Carlos gave a lecture in private classes and explained what you could expect as the assemblage point moves along the outside of the egg. The first noticeable movement produces meditative effects. Silence is required, or at the least, some alteration of the internal dialogue. The results, however, are not all that convincing in terms of this actually being real magic. It is perhaps closer to some form of insect hive mind consciousness. The first truly vivid magic comes when the assemblage point moves down to your lower back, into what seers called the shift below. It is a true accomplishment to be able to move it that far on a daily basis. The results are so drastic, there's no way to profit from teaching it to others for money. This is the realm of dangerous witches and shape-shifting sorcerers. Once the assemblage point has switched sides on the body, the quagmire of the shift below evaporates, and a whitish light appears on surfaces. This whitish light gives you a virtual surface to focus on, allowing you to perceive silent knowledge earlier than you otherwise would have been able to. If the whitish light becomes more golden in color and intensifies, you've located what Carlos called the wall. Silent knowledge can manifest on that, including portals to other locations, complete with wind blowing towards you from the opening. Just keep in mind, the possibilities for the whitish light are nearly endless, and this realm can also be considered a quagmire. It is not yet pure seeing. Seeing, also known as silent knowledge, happens because your assemblage point moves into alignment with that of your energy body, which is a smaller ball of glowing blue light, which forms inside your luminous shell. The alignment of your tonal's beam of awareness with that of your double is what makes seeing possible. Once you can stabilize it, you can watch videos form in the air endlessly. But this uses up a lot of dreaming attention, and it's a true feat to sustain this continuously for more than 20 minutes. All of these states of awareness are related to specific positions of the assemblage point. And the new seers got so good at moving their assemblage point that they could move it faster than the emanations associated with these sites could cool down after being lit up. As a result, they discovered the third attention, a method to light up all the emanations in their luminous shell at once and burn away the boundaries. But as great as this achievement of the new seers was, Carlos found something beyond that. Guided by the energetic mass of his workshops, which illuminated energetic configurations even Don Juan didn't have access to, and driven by his illness, which set a hard limit on his ability to remain here, he shunned the old seers method, despite his 2 allies trying to pull him into their world in an attempt to save him. And he even shunned burning from within, which seemed to be seeking him out through the form of an intensely glowing tiny blue butterfly landing on his toe to begin the third attention burning process. Instead, as he warned us in an obscure final interview in a Spanish language publication, "I am already on the other side, and there is no way I can escape." Fortunately, this is clarified further in workshop notes about a lecture by Carol Tiggs. She talked about Carlos's recent breakthrough to a new vibratory level and what it meant for them. She said the implications were staggering and that they may not be able to formulate what exactly it means for some time, if ever. She said again that vibration is key to everything and that they were learning new things about it and its relationship to everything they knew about energy and awareness. Carol then related something that Carlos said to her recently that was the most exquisite thing she had ever heard. He had grabbed her by the arm and said very movingly, "I never thought I'd live forever. Let's do it." It has since become an axiom which guides them. Don Juan described the final goal of their sorcerer's knowledge as the preparation for facing the definitive journey, the journey that every human being has to take at the end of his life. He said that through their discipline and resolve, seers were capable of retaining their individual awareness and purpose after death. That purpose, he explained, is to embark consciously on the definitive journey, riding one's awareness into the boundless infinity that awaits beyond this world.